Hi, Shari Rendall with Thayer's State and Local team, and I am out in Harford County with Sheriff Jeff Gahler. Sheriff was elected in 2014. He actually served in the Maryland State Police Department for 28 years, and he actually runs the biggest sheriff's office in Maryland. So I want to start off by offering you congratulations on the arrest of Rachel Morin's alleged murderer. I know from our previous conversations over the last year that this has been a real arduous process for you, and that you and your officers worked diligently to get a resolution in this case. So take us back to that day Rachel Morin was killed.
Well, sure, and I have to say I hate to use any nice words associated with Rachel's horrific ending and what happened to her. But I could not be more happy, more pleased with the work of our investigators and our federal, state, and local partners at finding this killer and bringing him to justice. In fact, he's on a plane as we sit here and do this interview. We'll be landing shortly in Maryland, and we'll be in our jail here in short order after that. But last August, sadly, Rachel Morin, mom of 5, 37 years old, very active, stayed fit, went out here to a very popular hiking trail. Our county is a small community about 30 minutes north of Baltimore, and very low crime rate. And certainly the Bel Air area where we sit today is, even for our community, another level of safe. And the trail and my backyard actually hits a portion of the Ma and Pa hiking trail. Not the portion where Rachel's life was taken, but a portion of it. And it's the reason I bought there, because I wanted to raise my family there in a safe place. Rachel went out that day to exercise, went down the trail, never to return. She was reported missing by her family later that evening. We found her car at the trailhead, and the next day, searchers, and I believe it was a citizen, actually found her body a short distance off of the trail near a drainage tunnel underneath the roadway, where she had been, sexually assaulted and brutally murdered, and the investigation began there.
And how were you able to tie Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez to the murder? I know you received hundreds of tips over the year, and they sent down rabbit holes and everything else. So,
well, this case, as many do, we have to thank our community partners who so many called in with tips, emailed, phone, all the communication pathways, and really this case grabbed not just national attention but international attention, and I think it's because of you put everything together, the heartbreak of her personal story along with the fact that it's just so uncommon. But the investigators began there, and we were able to tie this suspect through a DNA hit, DNA that was recovered at the scene of Rachel's homicide. Within 2 weeks after the homicide, we got a DNA hit to a case in Los Angeles that had happened 6 months earlier, in March of 2023. There had been a home invasion in a house out in Los Angeles where a 9-year-old young woman and her mom were both physically assaulted. That case remains under investigation by the Los Angeles Police Department, but certainly that DNA evidence says our suspect in Rachel's death, and the man who's responsible for her death, was here in Maryland in August, but back there 6 months earlier in March committed that thing. That crime was interrupted by someone else in the home, and thankfully so, or we might be here discussing other serious sexual assaults, homicides, types of things from that. But we were able to obtain some video doorbell camera, and we knew what the suspect, we didn't get a great shot of him, but we had the side profile and him walking away and the back and his clothing. So that gave us the first lead, real lead on following this suspect. We were able to release a few months later a composite that was done off of people from Los Angeles and people from here, and finally agreeing on what the suspect looked like. But it was the DNA, it's the science that tied him, that narrowed us down, working with our federal partners. I cannot say enough. You don't always hear this praise for the FBI, but I cannot say enough great things about the Baltimore Field Office of the FBI, how well they worked with our investigators, state police here, an organization I used to work for. DNA brought this case home, and they were able to pinpoint down on a suspect. Once we had a possible, we were able to do a direct DNA to him off of evidence that had been recovered throughout the through the course of the investigation. That gave us the probable cause for the arrest warrant, and we met I believe it was last Friday, we met with the family to let them know that we had a name, so we now knew who he was, but we just didn't know where he was. And there comes the technology, which had been worked all through the case, but using IP addresses and devices and stuff, we were able to track him to a bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma, working great with that police department, and as Los Angeles Police Department, great relationship there, working through this case. Worked with Tulsa Police Department and the FBI there, and they walked in and were able to positively identify him and arrest him, and as I said, he's on his way here.
Quite a story there. And it's great that you have him now. You had mentioned the home invasion in California. Do you know if there had been any instances where he had been in custody previously?
To the best of what we have found out so far, that he had not been picked up for anything else, but his fingerprints and photographs were taken at the border when he tried to enter the country and was arrested by Customs and Border Patrol and turned away. So those are on file, and certainly that helps us know positively who our suspect is and brings a whole new element to the investigation, to the case, that this is a person who should have never been in the country in the first place.
So when was he first on ICE's radar? Is it after what happened here in Harford County?
Well, certainly there's now a detainer. The Tulsa jail there, I believe, which is run by the sheriff, is a 287G partnership, as we are here in Harford County with ICE. So there is a detainer for him. I don't know that ICE was involved in this. He had interaction, our suspect had interaction with Customs and Border Patrol, again at an encounter where he was picked up and turned away. And as so many do at the southern border, he didn't take no for the answer, and he just came across. We know that he is wanted on what is called a red notice, an Interpol warrant for a murder of a woman in a similar fashion to the way Rachel's life was taken in his home country of El Salvador. And January of 2023, he was encountered coming to the country sometime around February of 23, and in March, a month later, he's involved in that serious home invasion and assault out there. And apparently, once you're in the country, as we all know and as we all enjoy and why we love our country, is that you're free to move. And he moved from one coast to the other, came here to Harford County, and for those not familiar, we're very close to the Atlantic seaboard. So literally one coast to the other, and then fled here. And we know he has ties in D.C., Northern Virginia. We're still working on his ties to our Harford County community, but then to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And what those ties are, we'll figure those out as well. But, he moved around this country, and he's not a person who came here to make our country better. He came here to victimize people who are in our country legally, or people from his own community, because the victims out in Los Angeles were, I don't know if they were from El Salvador, but they were Hispanic.
So I know you mentioned that he was accused of murder in his home country. He's also possibly got gang ties as well, correct?
Sure, we're familiar with affiliations. We can't say at this point he's a direct gang member. Mm-hmm. We had a homicide. Unfortunately, it wasn't one that our office, well, not unfortunately, but our office didn't handle it because it's within an incorporated municipality in the year before, where a young lady, her life was taken by someone in the country illegally, who was a confirmed MS-13 member, and he presently is in our detention center awaiting trial on that. But for this suspect, we don't know that he is directly a gang member. Investigators are still working everything they can, but he has ties to known criminal gangs.
How did Biden's immigration policies play a role in this individual?
And I said in the news, this did not need to happen to Rachel. These are things that are preventable. We need a secure border, and this is something that I've maintained, and many sheriffs in particular but law enforcement professionals have maintained across the years. I wrote a letter back in 18 supportive of the border wall, 18 or 19, because to stem the flow of drugs into our country, fentanyl, heroin and fentanyl specifically. But under President Trump, we had a much more secure border, a lot less illegal entry into the country, a lot less fentanyl and heroin coming into the country. President Biden ran on a platform of stopping all those executive actions and opened the door, and the illegal population heard him loud and clear. Those who want to do harm to our country, terrorists, criminals like our suspect, took him up on the offer and came to the border, and the border is just overwhelmed. Customs and Border Patrol have an overwhelming job. So I think the policy of informing everyone that the border is open, and it is open. I've been to the southern border. It's not protected as it should be, and you can just walk across, and we know the cartels control the border. So I believe that the current administration's policy of it's saying it's not an issue when they know it's an issue, and now right before the election trying to do some other things to show some action. It's far late, but we need to work collectively, Democrats and Republicans, bipartisan effort to really come up with a, first and foremost, secure the southern border, and then come up with an immigration policy that works.
As you know, the Maryland legislature over the past several years has passed legislation to shield criminal aliens in the state, and actually became a sanctuary state in 2021. I know you and I were both fighting that. What are the ramifications of Biden's policy plus Maryland being a magnet that have led to communities like Hartford being in danger?
Yeah, well, we are certainly, I'm thankful for our ICE partnership. We were only one of three of 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland that are not sanctuary destinations or jurisdictions. But when your whole state is out with the welcome mat, you're going to get the flow into your state. So we're definitely impacted. We've seen numbers increasing in our 287 encounters, but I think it's a problem for every community. It doesn't matter whether you are a small 10,000 population county or like us, mid-range 260,000, or whether you're a major city. We see New York with the buses coming, saying, "Stop! We can't handle it any longer." The border sheriffs and the border communities have been seeing this for years, and under the current administration, they have seen it exaggerated or exasperated so many times worse.
Yeah, definitely. Do you believe there's any fortitude in the state after something like this to repeal sanctuary and actually cooperate with immigration officials?
And as you well know, we spend year after year down there just so they won't take away our 287 partnership, because it's a public safety. It's a tool for public safety here in Hartford County and in the other jurisdictions. But they did pass a law that no other jurisdictions can join. Do I have hope that Maryland's legislature will wake up overnight and say public safety should be priority number one? I do not. It should be, and it should be every person, as I do, who is elected by the people, who holds up their hand and takes an oath of office. Our primary duty should be the safety and security of our community and our community members. Maryland's legislature, their eye is often off of that. I don't even know when it's on that target.
Certainly hasn't been for the last several years.
Right.
You mentioned 287G, which we are strong proponents of. If Rachel Morin's murder had happened in another county, for instance, Baltimore County, do you think the outcome would have been different? Because you're able to do a lot more.
No, I think that the 287G partnership, because it's a corrections-based program, really doesn't impact the law enforcement side. So if this had happened in our neighboring county of Baltimore County, I think we'd be at the same point in time where there'd be an ICE detainer on file that will hopefully never be needed. Because if it happened in Baltimore County, as it happened here, we do not have a death penalty in Maryland, thanks to Maryland's legislature. If any case ever qualified for the death penalty, Rachel's homicide certainly would, in my opinion. And I think that he wanted to come to this country illegally to spend the rest of his life. Well, I hope now he stays. I don't want him deported. I want him to stay in this country behind bars, Department of Corrections for the state of Maryland, until he dies an old man, if that's the best that we can do. Certainly, I think a deterrent factor, the death penalty, but those discussions are off the table. I think it would have transpired the same way in Baltimore County, where they would have arrested him, tried him, convicted him, and he would serve that time. If he's ever released on his Maryland charges down the road, then he'll still face charges from Los Angeles. That case is still active, and they've been working with our investigators, so they have the evidence to bring their case to a prosecutorial standpoint. And should he ever leave there after here, then he would face deportation. Like I said, he wanted to come here. Now I don't want him to go home.
Well, certainly knowing that he'd probably just sneak right back across the border, that's a valid reason to keep him here.
Yes, he would.
So I just want to turn it over to you. Is there anything else that you think that you want to share?
No, I just think that, people want to say that this is an issue that, this is not an issue that started with Rachel's death. But I hope that, if you saw Rachel's mom, Patty, talk at the press conference, the whole family's impacted. You have 5 children who have lost their mom in such a tragic, and that's the memory they're going to have of how their mom was taken from them, and the element that it should not have been allowed to happen. When I say allowed to happen, we've embraced not fixing, on everyone's part, not fixing or having a strong immigration policy and a workable. There needs to be a pathway into this country to citizenship if that's what they want. The fact that we are such a wonderful blending pot of so many cultures and races, and the freedoms we enjoy is what makes our country so wonderful. And people should be able to have that as a goal. I talked about attending my wife's grandmother's naturalization. She didn't have to become naturalized. She wanted to. She wanted to be a citizen of this country the right way, and she went through it. And I stood with her at her ceremony when she was sworn in as a American citizen. That's the way the system should work, and we have gone so far off base for decades. Republicans, Democrats need to get together and fix it, and again, put the safety of our communities first and take the politics off the table.
Absolutely. Well, Sheriff, thank you so much
for
your time.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for all you do on this effort.
Thank you.